protagonists need to make choices. They can't just let everything happen to them. Then it's not really a story. It's all about the evolution of the character through the narrative that makes a story, okay? And that's what we're looking for here. And how can this... We're going to move on to Pam's story, but before we do, Pam, what is your vision for your book?
Well, this book, which doesn't really have a title yet, it's currently titled Lenora in Linville, because I don't know what I want to call it, is actually the second of two books that I would love to get traditionally published. I would like to get an agent. I would love to go down the whole that way. And I would love for these two books, I would love to get a 2-book deal with the first one and with Lenora. However, I'm trying to make sure both of them could stand alone, so it's not a series in the sense that you'd have to read one before the other. So I'm trying to make Lenora and Linville tie into the first one, which is Margot and Moonshine, but at the same time be able to stand alone, should that be the case.
So that's really important to mention. They do need to stand alone, but they need to be able to work together. Not everybody will. Sometimes somebody will be in an airport bookstore and they'll pick up the second book and they have no idea that there was even a first book. They'll need to be able to read this on their own. Of course, we're thinking about that airport bookstore, but that's okay. We have high hopes. That's very important. Okay, so this is the second. And also you mentioned traditional publishing. So that is, as part of your vision, means that it needs to be relatively commercial. And that's not a bad word. That just means, again, that you need to capture a certain audience and success that you want. So can you do your MCS for us for the second book?
Sure. And I'm really glad that on the MCS slide that you put up, the second one said subject to change or something, because I'm having a little bit of trouble in part of this, but you'll hear it when I get to it. Okay. 95-year-old Lenora Lynch has spent a lifetime building a successful tea business with her now deceased sister-in-law, Maisie. Lensie's, her tea company, is now being run by her niece, Robin. And Lenora is asked to return to the western North Carolina town of Stoney Gap, where Lensie's began, to participate in a television show about the origin and empire of Lensie's. However, Lenora is hiding a secret. 70 plus years ago, she accidentally, this is a change, created a lethal tea blend that killed her husband and her brother-in-law. And no one ever found out. Because the brothers in the 1950s were pretty prolific moonshiners, the community assumed they died from improperly distilled moonshine, and she let that piece of gossip live. Now, returning to Stoney Gap is making the past encroach on the present, and her memories are beginning to intrude on each other. And this is where I'm having trouble. Originally, I had, during a television interview, her secret slips out. It's a problem because I then changed it to say she intentionally told her nephew the secret, but it's not working for me that well. So this is where I'm stuck. So let's go with, okay, her secret slips out. In order to find peace with this, she has to be honest about what happened, which risks her family abandoning her. If the truth comes out to the public, the company might fold, and Lenora fears dying alone, with her family abandoning her and her destroying the business she almost single-handedly made famous. She takes responsibility for her actions. She shares everything with her family. and this is where I don't know where I'm going, and eventually they all forgive her and she lives happily ever after until she dies. But again, I'm not really sure how I'm going to get there.
Okay, so here's the good news. Here's the good news. You have two different paths you can go down. You know where it begins. It's in the middle that you have those two paths, but you know where you want it to end. So, I mean, you've got it bound in some way, and you can really think about each of those paths and see which is going to be the stronger for you without completely blowing the whole thing up in your mind. That's a good thing. Okay. On that note, let's have Alex start with some comments for you.
That's helpful. The perspective is really helpful here. My thought, and I realize you just changed this, my thought kind of goes back to a few times ago when we talked about agency and we talked about inciting incident. The inciting incident here is she kills these two moonshiners. I think she has to do it on purpose. I don't know.
It's her husband. It's her husband.
Okay, fine. Maybe not him, but he drinks it by accident, but she was intending to kill the other guy. I don't know. Like, she needs agency, you know, and I think especially in the what are we talking, 50s, right? Probably. At a time when she probably feels none. And yeah.
Okay, I want to let Melany offer up something right now. Go ahead, Melany.
I just want to ask a question because I don't think of the death of her husband and brother-in-law as the inciting incident. I think the release of the secret is the inciting incident. So that's just a question, I guess.
What do you see, Pam, as the inciting incident here?
Well, the inciting incident is her having to talk about this because she has kept it under wraps for 70 years and has done a fine job. But when she is thrust back into this world, it's the memories that start slipping. So I think it's losing control of her secret. So it's
losing control is not agency.
the agency.
She has to make an active choice.
She accepts this job interview, or not job interview. She accepts going to this interview, but in earlier chapters, she fights it. She really doesn't want to because she knows going back to Stoney Gap is not going to be good for her. But she does it because she wants to do it for her daughter and her granddaughter. So I guess the inciting incident is participating in this show, because that's when it all starts to fall apart.
In order to set the record straight?
She goes on the show in order to showcase Lensie's as a favor sort of to Poppy, her granddaughter, because this is a career move for her and she doesn't want to hold her back, and she's going to do it because it's going to be good for Lensie's business. They're going to get some exposure, but she knows what's at risk is her being able to hold on the lid on the secret.
So in a way, she chooses to keep a lie.
She has every intention to keep this lie.
Okay.
That was how I originally started this. She has no intention of giving this up, but the guilt has been eating at her for so long that she's confusing. She's 95. She's confusing faces of today with people from the past and starting and catching herself. So it's not like dementia in Melany's story where she's not aware of it. She's aware, my gosh, I see him and I thought it was somebody else and I said something. And everyone's looking at me like, why would you say that? That's not this person.
I don't know. Does anyone think that that's agency? I'm having a hard time seeing that as her making a choice to do something that changes her trajectory. Intentional choice to do something.
I guess I'm struggling with if it's guilt, it's against her will or her desire. She's not choosing to do this because it's her memory and her mind is doing it for her. And she's trying to do everything she can to keep it sealed. but it's coming out anyway. So now she has to take control of it.
It's passive though.
But isn't that, I guess I thought, well, that's what happens sometimes to people, right? I mean, I don't know.
Now it could be that she really in her heart of hearts wants to confess. But then you have to fix that a little
It's
bit.
hard because I don't have any motivation for her to do that now at 95. Why didn't she do that when she was 40? I can't imagine what would make her want to confess now. Originally, you're right. I had changed it to say, oh, she chooses to confess to try to help Alton, who's battling his own demons. And I'm having a hard time with it. It feels like it's not connecting for me.
Right.
So
I understand that. But it's like, oh, this is happening to her and that's happening to her.
Right.
These are happening to her. She's not happening to them. That's what I
Right.
mean. She
I
has to
understand that.
actively do something.
Yeah.
And I don't think that age alone is sufficient. So you have to figure that out a little bit more.
That's
What if
probably
the
where I am.
interviewer-
Go ahead, Melanie.
What if the interviewer brings up the subject and then on the spot she has to decide how she's going to reply? And it could be just innocent enough of knowing the history of her husband, or I don't know if it's possible that there's some evidence, or maybe not, but maybe he's just asking about her history and she wasn't expecting that to come up. Or maybe she was, but then she has to make a choice because she's been put on the spot and the cameras are rolling. Have fun with that.
That's definitely one. Stacey, what are you thinking? You look very serious here.
I'm just not. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about. I'm getting all kind of mixed up with everything. I totally buy that her mind is fracturing a little bit. It's not dementia, it's not Alzheimer's, it's just being old and she's having a hard time keeping things together. So I don't think that's a problem.
But is it a story?
Well, that's the question. I think her agency comes into play of being betrayed by her body and mind. And how do I deal with this? How do I either in the beginning keep it under wraps, or as we move along, how do I get this out with as much dignity as I can have?
Okay. So perhaps
That's more like agency.
in the very beginning, her mind and body betray her, and then she has to figure a way out, a way to take this damage and make her family whole again. Maybe that's all it takes.
How to use it for Alton, how to use it so that the truth comes out, how to keep it there, keep from being as much damage as possible or as little damage as possible. All of those things. She's trying to manage it a bit, and at some point she's going to have to just let it go and deal with the ramifications of it. So she's lived a life of management, and she's got to let it go. And that's what we need to see.
Mm-hmm.
That decision is a choice. It is agency.
Yep.
You wanted to ask. Excellent, Stacey. I knew there was something bubbling up in
Write
there.
it down.
I
Thank
can
you.
tell.
No,
Alex, you want to add to that?
I like that a lot. I think
Yeah.
her need to control is apparent on the page. She's a control freak, and this is making her the story of this story is her loss of control in her life, her narrative about herself with her family and everybody else, and how she regains her dignity or not through the course of the second half of the book. Dignity is a great word here, because I think that's absolutely where she would. That's the value that she would place highly.
Agreed. Yeah.
How she looks, how she feels, like Yeah, and it comes up constantly in her thoughts and dialogue. So that I think that's absolutely that's the struggle internally, and then this external thing which she caused has sort of come back on her, and now she has to deal with the repercussions of it. But she's too old to be able to sort of handle it the way she would have when she was 40, and now it's been so long that she can't. If only I was 40 or 50 when all this had come out, I would have been able to manage it. And now I don't have any control anymore because I don't have control over myself anymore. And that's enormous, right? I mean, there's a Faulknerian element to all this, right? And if you don't want to do multiple, I mean, there we go, right? Like, there's sort of a Faulkner feel to how all these stories can interconnect, and this is hers, so there it is, right? But I felt reading this, my main takeaway was that I felt like the characters are trying to deal with everything. The characters have not moved on from this revelation, from the repercussions, from having to reorient themselves with their own past, their own understanding of themselves and their history, and that just needs to be revealed through the characters. I felt like they're wanting to be desperate and losing control and not knowing what to do and pretending to know what to do but then failing, and and then the story itself is just kind of moving on, and this chapter felt like, I don't know, the question I wanted to ask, which I don't think is even necessary, is like, how does this chapter function? And like, could we just cut to the interview, where everything is really going to hit the fan, and this is just kind of like preamble to the interview, because I feel like all the characters want to be expressing, and the narrative is not allowing the expression to actually come out, and everything is really pared down, and it's just dialogue and a couple taglines, and and it feels like there's an undercurrent from the people in the story who want to describe their feelings, the situation, all the complexity of their emotions, and everything's just simply being sort of in a half a sentence told, and I want the characters to sort of release I mean, this revelation, this is 2 chapters 24 hours after this revelation came out, and all these characters are boiling over, and we've got a lid on top of it, and we're just looking at the top of the lid, and I think we need to release the lid and let the steam out and then show the steam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice way of putting it. All right, thank you for that. Melanie, any thoughts for us on top of that?
Yes. Let's see here. So let's see, on page 2, when we have the marker of March 2000. Now, of course, I jumped in midway through your story, but I just realized that I don't know what the present day of your story is, so therefore I'm not sure how old she is here. So I wasn't sure if she was like 70 years old or so. I may know that if I.
Her niece is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think one of the main thing that I came away from this with, I think, is an issue of verisimilitude. And maybe it's because of my background. Not that my background is super unique, but my understanding of Lenora is that she is a successful entrepreneur. But when we hear the story of her idea of rolling out the bottled tea, and there's just a complete lack of entrepreneurial effort behind that,
Mhm.
And so I don't know if she has a false, concept of herself as a great entrepreneur. If it was luck that they were successful. At one point, it talked about how they kind of drilled down and simplified the product to just tea. And I do still go back to that concept of I just can't imagine a place that sells tea being financially successful, a brick and mortar place. But that is a thing that has been on my mind. But I think the portrayal of her being an entrepreneur doesn't line up with this example of how she approached this new business concept with no business plan, no numbers crunched, no plan B for taste testing, which seems like, you could arrange that pretty easily, at least informally. So, so if she's meant to be an entrepreneur, I think you could just throw it in Chat GPT and it'll spit out a business plan for you. So that would be easy enough to give it a little heft to where to a reader it would be like, oh yeah, she tried that, and just, so that it feels like it makes sense. I have a business background though, so that's just my background coming out.
Although I will tell you that tea is a thing. It's a big thing. And there are tea shops all over the place that have developed into bigger things like Tazo tea, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not that far-fetched.
But this is
In Portland, there are a million tea shops.
This is
I
this
think-
a standalone,
This is what's hard. They started as a standalone country store, but then when tea grew so big, they have a warehouse now. And Lenora is an entrepreneur. This was a mistake she made, and it was designed to show Lenora has always been impulsive, which fed into that lethal tea poisoning because she just wanted to get rid of Jefferson Hughes, and she created this. So I think this was not just designed to make her look like an entrepreneur. It was designed to make her, when she realized maybe I am too impulsive and I am going off on my own and I do need my partner and I am going to listen to others' advice, but then
Okay.
it wasn't.
The question is that the best way to show it, because she does come off as the matriarch of a very successful business. And so when she
Right.
does this, when she takes this leap that's a little sloppy, it doesn't seem in character for her.
I mean, entrepreneurs can definitely take risks,
Mhm.
but maybe detail what the risk is and why she felt like that calculated risk was worth it. Just so that, we buy into the fact that she's entrepreneurial.
So really show it.
Yeah.
Little background.
Let's see. So on page 5, towards the top of page 5, she's worrying that she's going to die alone, abandoned, and unforgiven. Although I really feel like pretty much from the beginning of her confession, her family seems pretty accepting of her. Maybe they're kind of like, oh man, I don't know, but they're not like, get out. So, I feel like that concern doesn't seem justified to me just based on her family's behavior towards her. I mean, Poppy's giving her a ride home. So let's see. At the top of page 7, so let's see, Poppy sighed. I'm not getting any younger. I'm 36. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking for sometimes. I hit one goal, reach a milestone. Until now, no offense, Grandma, but I don't want to spend my life shielding myself from regret. I'm not sure I understand the connection there, or like what parallel she's drawing between her life and Lenora's life. Maybe others got that. I wasn't totally sure I was following that. In her response to that, you will make mistakes in life. You can't avoid them, but listen to your gut. I think there's a really interesting opportunity here, given her unique background, that her advice could be a little more colorful as long as it stays, you know, true to her character, obviously. But I mean, you're teeing up a really interesting opportunity where her advice is something sort of wackadoodle, you know, like murders and moonshine or something. I don't know. But it could, the message of her advice could be the same message, but she could really have fun with it and say something really memorable. And the thing that made me think that is that in this section, it feels like the voice of Poppy and the voice of Lenora feel very similar. And so I think it would also be an opportunity to distinguish their two voices.
Okay.
Let's see. Towards the bottom of page 9, let's see. Poppy's offering to pay the bill. And then she says, which reminds me, I need to call Mark back. I'll pay this and give him a call. And then Lenora nods. And then Lenora goes outside. I think that's a really great opportunity to see some interiority of Lenora there, because this is what could blow it open, right? Is so the family knows that seems relatively contained, but now it could blow open for the bigger world, depending on what her boss does with the information. But she doesn't have any reaction to that.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, this might be a small thing, on page 10, she says, I can't imagine how he could corroborate any of my claims, though, which is making me think about her confession to the sheriff. Because I think she has already, there is someone who can corroborate those claims, which is an easy to fix, just a little thing. Yeah, so that's all.
All right.
I have.
Thank you. And Stacey, I know we asked for a pretty heavy intervention earlier, but what thoughts have you to finish up with?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a whole lot of other comments besides what I already brilliantly gave you. But you know, in listening in listening to how you did your MCS, and you were talking about just the struggle with everything, I think I feel it in this chapter. I felt that. And the chapter as a whole felt kind of disjointed. I didn't understand the flashback and how that connected with things very well. And I kind of feel like if we're going to do a flashback at this late in a story, it better have some big revelations. And I just didn't feel that. It just felt like another little piece of her journey, but it didn't feel like there was a compelling question that it was answering. And so yeah, I felt like we spent a lot of time at the diner. It just sort of felt like a drop in intensity and a lowering of stakes from some of the other chapters. I think Alex kind of alluded to that things were just starting to unravel a little bit here, and everything was almost going back to normal. Not really, that's an overstatement. But even with the conversation with Poppy, and I think I've said this before about Lenora, she's super quick to offer advice instead of asking questions and going deeper with Poppy or with somebody else. She did it again in this interaction with Poppy. And I like the idea that Melany said of maybe using her background to offer some thoughts, but I just feel like that whole conversation could have been expanded a little bit more to show Poppy's tension and her frustration and her insecurity, so that when she burst into tears at the end of the chapter, there's some weight to it, because otherwise it didn't hit me. It felt kind of cringy to me. Like, what is her problem? So I think I think I felt your
Felt my struggle.
yeah, I felt your struggle in this chapter, but I wasn't sure what it was. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we're connecting. You're muted, Celeste.
There is an answer, and it's easier than you think. Okay. And actually, I think Stacey did a tremendous service today in kind of pulling together some of these ideas and this notion of dignity and agency and giving some things up, but making a choice to, and maybe soliciting the help of her family for the first time rather than controlling everything that goes on. There's a lot of potential here to really do something beautiful. And I think that if a lack of agency, I know we bandy that word around a lot, but protagonists need to make choices. They can't just let everything happen to them. That is not really a story. It's all about the evolution of a character through the narrative that makes a story, okay? And that's what we're looking for here. And how can this 95-year-old woman make a conscious effort to change? Maybe she can let her family help her. So I think that there's something beautiful here that you have to work with. And the notion of maintaining her dignity, I can't think of anything. I always tell my kids, look, when I'm on, when I'm just like hooked up to something, a ventilator or whatever, just make sure I get a pedicure every 3 weeks and I'll be happy. My concern is having my dignity maintained even when I lose control. I mean, oh my God. But it has to be balanced by some wisdom she attains over the course of this novel, over the course of dealing with the reactions of her family to this truth, over recognizing her mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all there. You just have to make sure that you make it clear to us. And you, unfortunately or fortunately, you may have to start your chapter 1 with the beginning of the interview. But don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. On that note,
I don't know if you have to go that far, but no, I think I assume the next chapter is going to be the interview in a soundstage, and will be a whole new experience for her. Let's move into that one and see where we go.
She actually wasn't going to do an interview.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I want to see the interview. I want to see this
See how
woman
she handles it.
deal with those lights and that heat, and somebody asking her question after question after question, and her being like,
we've already seen that
question.
Well, she did that.
Yeah.
She interviewed already and made some mistakes because she was also a moonshiner herself. That's another part of the story. So that was chapters back. In the next chapter, actually, her daughters come, because you remember her daughters she hasn't told her daughters, but they find out. So she has to maybe if she takes some heat from them, that will give you what you're saying is kind of lacking. It's her having to show how's she going to handle this. Because it's Robin and who she already confessed to, who's like, I love you, but I can't talk to you. And now it's her daughters are going to come over. And they're the ones most impacted by the secret, because it was their fathers that she killed. So
yeah, fair enough.
maybe that, if I can put some intensity there, then it might, I don't know, we're going to try.
I think you're closer than you think.
Yeah,
It's hard.
This is really, I mean, emotionally, this is an extremely difficult, every book has that moment where the really important thing happens. And as a writer, it's really difficult to get in that space where you can do it, where you have the wherewithal within yourself to feel the emotions you need to feel that are gonna hurt really hard and cause you to question yourself because you're trying to do that and just express it through the character. And that's, every book has those 2 or 3 chapters, maybe one, maybe whatever it is, you know. And I think yours, it's more ongoing because the repercussions are the real point. And that's, you know, and connecting with that is really,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough because you really gotta feel it, and nobody wants to. I mean, nobody wants to. You know, like, but
That-
humor. My thought was humor. Like, let her be a little ironic and sarcastic or something, and you know, like that could add a new layer to it. That where she makes a joke of things on top of being a control freak, and that drives her kids nuts. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm just.
That sounds, yeah. You'll have to figure out the best way to do that. That's in character for her, but it is closer than you think. So don't worry. I hate doing this to Pam. I always do this to you. Sorry. We'll talk later. I'll be flying to Florida for that Mai Tai, and we'll have a nice long talk, and we'll get everything worked out. I promise.
Bardsy delivers the tools, guidance, and support you need to produce compelling novels. Our well-researched and thoroughly tested approach includes our minimum complete story, a 90-second exercise that keeps your writing on track while fueling creativity, Bardsy Publishability Index, a 23-dimension checklist that offers attainable goals and provides actionable feedback, and our brand new comprehensive character developer that helps you construct unforgettable characters. Come see for yourself at Bardsy.com today. Try our workshop or enter our first chapter contest. Then, when you're ready, Elite Membership delivers writing groups, personal coaching, and a curated community. With Bardsy, your work will captivate everyone, from agents to publishers, and, most importantly, your readers.